Something big is happening in the world of farming, and it's sending shockwaves through the U.S. agricultural industry. Canada just made a bold move, and American farmers are feeling the heat. Whether you work in agriculture or just want to know how this could affect the food on your plate, stick around. We're breaking it all down. So, how did we get here? To understand the chaos unfolding today, we need to rewind a bit. For decades, the US and Canada have been like next-door neighbors who share everything, especially when it comes to farming. American farmers have relied on Canada as a key buyer for things like wheat, beef, and dairy. Meanwhile, Canadian producers have depended on the US to sell their own agricultural goods. This close relationship was made possible by trade deals like NAFTA and later the USMCA, which helped keep business running smoothly between the two nations. Crops, livestock, and dairy products flowed easily across the border, making both economies stronger. But now the game has changed. But before we continue, do you think Canada should accept Trump's deal to become one of the states of the USA? Let us know what you think in the comments section. The US just rolled out a hefty 25% tariff on several Canadian products, including key agricultural goods. The goal? To shield American industries and shrink the trade gap. But Canada wasn't about to sit back and take the hit. They fired back with their own tariffs on American exports like corn, soybeans, and beef. And now the farming world is feeling the squeeze. So who's really paying the price in this trade battle? Let's break it down. Dairy farmers are getting hit the hardest. For years, Canada has been one of the biggest buyers of U.S. dairy products. But with these new tariffs, selling milk, cheese, and other dairy goods across the border has suddenly become a lot more expensive. Fewer sales mean falling prices, and for many dairy farmers, this is turning into a financial disaster. Some are barely hanging on, scrambling to cover their costs while facing an uncertain future. And it's not just dairy farmers feeling the pressure. Grain farmers are in trouble too. Corn and soybean growers have long relied on Canada as a major buyer, but now those sales are drying up fast. With nowhere to send their crops, prices have tanked, leaving farmers stuck with mountains of unsold grain. The competition from other countries isn't making things any easier, and the entire industry is starting to buckle under the weight of these new challenges. Livestock farmers are feeling the pressure, and it's hitting them hard. Selling beef and pork to Canada used to be a reliable way to make a living, but with new trade barriers in place, everything has changed. Prices are dropping, costs are rising, and many farmers are stuck in a brutal squeeze. Imagine running a business where you're making less money, but your expenses keep climbing. That's the harsh reality these farmers are facing. Some are being forced to downsize while others are scrambling to find new buyers just to stay afloat. But this goes beyond just the farmers themselves. There's a much bigger shift happening. The divide between small family-run farms and massive agricultural corporations is growing wider. Big farms with deep pockets have the resources to ride out this storm, but smaller farms, they're taking the hardest hits. Many don't have the financial cushion to absorb the extra costs, and as a result, we're seeing more and more of them getting bought out. Large agribusinesses are swooping in, and that's reshaping the entire farm industry in a way that may never be reversed. And then there's the human toll. Farming is already an unpredictable job. Bad weather, shifting markets, and constant financial strain make it one of the toughest industries to be in. Now, add in the stress of a trade war, and it's no surprise that anxiety and mental health struggles are on the rise among farmers. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about real people, real families, and entire communities trying to navigate an uncertain future. And the effects don't stop at the farm. When agriculture takes a hit, so does everything around it. Equipment dealers, food processors, truckers, and even local diners that serve farmers their morning coffee. All parts of the economy that rely on farming are feeling the ripple effect. Things are getting tense and the whole world is paying attention. With the US and Canada caught in a trade standoff, other countries see an opening. Nations like China, Mexico, and those in the European Union could swoop in to fill the gap, picking up the business that once flowed between the two North American neighbors. For farmers, that could mean new markets to explore. But it's not that simple. Selling to a new country isn't just about putting crops on a boat and sending them off. Every market has its own rules, regulations, and preferences. Adjusting to these changes takes time, money, and a whole lot of risk. And then there's another problem. The more the US relies on global trade partners, the more unpredictable things become. International markets can be volatile, shifting with political tension, economic downturns, or even sudden policy changes. Changes that put American agriculture in a more fragile position, where one unexpected event could send shock waves through the industry. Now let's talk about how farmers are trying to keep up. Technology is becoming a lifeline for many in agriculture. Tools like precision farming allow for more efficient use of water, fertilizer, and labor, helping farmers cut costs and boost profit. In times like these, those advantages can make a huge difference. But here's the catch. Upgrading to new technology isn't cheap. With so much financial uncertainty, many farmers are hesitating to make big investments. They know they need to innovate to stay competitive, but when money is tight, taking that leap feels risky. It's a tough balancing act, and for some, the cost of standing still might be just as dangerous as moving forward. Looking ahead, this trade battle isn't just about short-term losses. It could change the way farming works in North America for good. If tensions don't ease, both U.S. and Canadian farmers may have to rethink the way they do business. Supply chains could shift, farming practices might evolve, and long-standing trade relationships could be rewritten. In a worst-case scenario, some farmers could be pushed out of the industry altogether. If costs keep rising and markets stay unstable, small and mid-sized farms may struggle to survive, leading to even more consolidation under big agricultural corporations. But there's also another possibility. If the U.S. and Canada can find common ground, this could be an opportunity to build a stronger, more sustainable agricultural system for the future. With the right policies, trade agreements, and innovations, this crisis could lead to something better in the long run. Farming isn't just about growing food. It's a major driver of the global economy. When something disrupts the trade of essential goods like grains, meat, and dairy, the effects don't just stay in one place. They spread far and wide, shaking up markets across Europe, Asia, and beyond. Right now, the rest of the world is watching closely as the US and Canada lock horns over trade. Why? Because this fight isn't just about two countries. It's part of a bigger shift in how nations think about trade. Governments everywhere are reevaluating their economic partnerships, looking for ways to protect their industries and searching for new opportunities to reduce reliance on any single market. Take Canada, for example. Instead of simply waiting for tensions with the US to ease, it's making bold moves to reshape its trade strategy by expanding its reach into markets like the European Union and China. Canada is reducing its dependence on American buyers and positioning itself as a key player in global agriculture. This shift is already paying off. Demand for Canadian exports like canola, soybeans, and wheat is growing in new regions. Stronger trade ties with China, in particular, offer huge potential, though they also bring a different set of challenges. Political tensions, shifting policies, and competition from other nations mean this path won't be entirely smooth. But one thing is clear: Canada is adapting and fast. Meanwhile, south of the border, American farmers are stuck in a tough spot. For years, they relied on Canada as a top buyer. But tariffs have thrown a wrench in that relationship. With added costs making U.S. goods less competitive, many farmers are watching their profit shrink. Government officials argue that these trade restrictions are necessary to fix imbalances and strengthen the domestic economy. But for farmers on the ground, the reality is far more complicated. Prices for key crops have been all over the place, and uncertainty is making it harder than ever to plan for the future. Some American farmers are now looking beyond Canada, trying to tap into other markets to make up for lost sales. But building new trade relationships doesn't happen overnight. Navigating different regulations, establishing reliable buyers, and competing with other agricultural powerhouses all add new layers of difficulty. The path forward is anything but clear. American farmers are raising the alarm about whether this tariff-heavy strategy can hold up in the long run. They're pushing for a more balanced trade approach, one that doesn't just rely on penalties, but actually considers the needs of farmers, businesses, and everyday consumers. This growing frustration is putting pressure on U.S. lawmakers to rethink their strategy. With the agricultural industry feeling the squeeze, politicians may have to adjust course to keep both farmers and the broader economy on steady ground. Meanwhile, both the U.S. and Canadian governments have stepped in to help their farmers weather the storm. In Canada, financial aid programs and subsidies are acting as a safety net, helping farmers absorb some of the economic shock. These efforts send a clear message. The government isn't just watching from the sidelines. It's actively trying to keep the industry afloat. The U.S. has also rolled out financial relief, including trade mitigation payments and direct aid for struggling farmers. While these measures have offered short-term support, many in the industry argue they're just band-aids, not real solutions. Farmers don't want to rely on government payouts. They want stable, long-term policies that protect them from future trade disruptions.